y'all, it's Amy with Double Heart Designs Texas. Thank you for joining my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I make a Patriotic glitter tumbler. Today we're going to be working with a 20-ounce skinny stainless steel tumbler that's already been primed. I like to use Rustoleum 2X flat white paint. So let's get started. We start with a holographic red glitter from Michaels. This is called Cherry. A chunky white mix. Excuse me. I think that's Semper Fi from Peachy Olive, and my absolute favorite silver holographic from Mama Boss. And that's a chunky mix. I'm going to lay out my measuring cups that are actually medicine cups to measure out my epoxy. It's a 2-part epoxy. You want to make sure that you measure your epoxy exactly. Using a medicine cup actually helps you measure your epoxy proportions correctly. If you don't, when you go to mix your epoxy, you won't have even proportions and you'll end up with a sticky cup. And we don't like sticky cups. After I've measured my epoxy in the medicine cups, I like to use a bathroom. It's a plastic cup. And I use large craft sticks that I get at Michael's to scrape my epoxy into the cups. So I start with A first, and I'm just making sure that I get it all by scraping the sides. And now I'm using B. Making sure that I get every last ounce of the epoxy out of the medicine cup. So according to my directions on the manufacturers, you have to stir for 3 minutes, and it shows that I'm stirring fast on here, but it's really not. It's I'm just making sure that I get all the sides scraped, pulling the epoxy off the bottom of the cup, just making sure that it's stirred properly. Again, I'm speeding this up right now, but if you don't get it all mixed, you'll have a sticky tumbler. And the way that I know that it's mixed properly is you start with clear epoxy, then it goes cloudy, and then when you get it perfect, it's clear. So now I am using the epoxy method with a gloved finger. I like to do the finger method. I like to be able to feel my tumblers and tell what areas have epoxy and what areas don't. So you can just feel everything. And so when you can run your finger over and it slides easily, then you have epoxy everywhere. But you want to just make sure that you don't feel any dry spots and be sure to get enough. Now, because I'm doing glitter, you want to make sure that it's not a heavy flood coat. It's a very, very thin layer. And somebody's going to ask me how many ounces I mixed on my epoxy, and I think it was 5 mil on each. I like to keep parchment paper underneath my tumblers when I glitter, just so that it catches. And I'm starting with the holographic red, and this is Recollections Cherry. And I'm doing this in a diagonal just because I want my stripes just to kind of be different and just kind of going at a diagonal direction. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it to make sure that I get it somewhat straight or even, and of course nothing's ever even with glitter. So I'm waiting for it to come back around, and we're catching that very bottom piece. So it's not perfect. Glitter, this part doesn't have to be perfect, and that's what I love about it. It's kind of like an ombre mix. You're just blending all the colors, but I'm making sure that I have enough glitter to cover the epoxy on the tumbler. And the way that I know that is if, as it's spinning, the glitter will look greasy or wet, and if it looks like that, then you need to add more glitter. So this is what I'm doing. I'll just sped it up. So I'm just double checking to make sure I got all those wet spots, got enough glitter. Now we're going to add the next coat of and this is I can't remember what the glitter is. This is a peachy olive color. It's a white chunky mix. To me, my favorite is a chunky mix. I love chunky. So again, I'm waiting for it to come back around. I can't remember the color of this. I'll put it in the listings below, but with the name. So again, as it's turning, if I see anything that needs to have attention, needs to be paid to it, I'll make sure that I catch that. So as things are turning, I'm kind of pressing down. If I see something, I'm not showing that on camera, but if I see something that needs to be flattened, I'll just tap it lightly with my finger. So I recycle my glitter. No glitter is thrown away unless it's contaminated, and then I throw it into a dump bucket that I have off to the side. Again, now we're going to start with, I went to the other side, and now we're going to use, this is 1 Carat by Mama Boss. This is what I call my disco ball. It is one of my favorites. It catches the light. It's almost, when I'm outside, it's like having a disco ball around you. It reflects that light, and that catch light is gorgeous. So we're just filling in this spot. This is probably going to be a thicker line, just because I just needed to fill in that one area. Now we're using Simplify from Peachy Olive. Peachy Olive glitters are gorgeous. They're one of my favorite glitters, and pretty much that's my main, she's my main jam. I love her glitters. So again, Simplify, and we're just making sure that I get a good coverage. Just going over, looking for those wet spots, either greasy or wet is what I'm looking for, just to make sure that I have enough coverage. And yes, right there on that red, it looks like it's not covered, but it is. It's the reflection off of the tumbler underneath the glitter, but I assure you it's covered. So again, I'm just making sure, we're just speeding through that process. Can you see that catch light? Oh my gosh, that cup is gorgeous. So this will spin for 6 hours, and then I'll put another coat of epoxy over the top of it. I just wanted to show you how I do a Patriotic tumbler. So I'm just going back over, just because I probably saw some wet spots on this red. And we're just double checking to make sure everything's covered. So can you kind of see those little wet spots? And that epoxy just soaks up that glitter. So you want to make sure it's covered and you have enough, because if not, that greasy spot will show up when you place your epoxy on top. So, salvaging that glitter. No waste. If you have any questions, leave your comments in below and I'll be sure to answer them. This is our first video for our YouTube, but we will be back with more tutorials. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the thumbs up.